Hey guys, what's going on? So today we're going to be talking about the new-ish Necromancer tank in Diepio. First though, I want to mention something they added today. When you die, instead of having to start over from scratch, you will spawn at half the levels you died at. Pretty cool feature added, makes the game more forgiving, which in my opinion was very much needed. Anyway, Necromancer is very hard to reach for one main reason. You shouldn't put any points into reload, which is a pretty important stat in my opinion, especially for grinding the levels to 45. Reload is totally useless for Necromancer since you have to get your quote-unquote bullets on your own. They don't actually come from your tank. We'll talk more about the stats later, but for now we're just going to try and actually get there. Alright, so we've hit level 15. Now we need to upgrade to Sniper. Keep in mind, you don't actually have to upgrade at all until level 45. If you really wanted, you could stay the basic tank, then after hitting 45, just do all upgrades simultaneously. I'm going to upgrade right away though. So we're level 30 now, and going to Overseer. This is where it gets a bit easier as long as you're careful. The little triangles do so much damage, but if they all get destroyed, you're in a very vulnerable position, since with 0 points in reload, it will take a while to get your triangle army back. I recommend mostly staying near the edge of the map and using your triangles as a sort of shield, sniping points from shapes and weaker players until level 45. Alright, so we finally made it to level 45, but wait! Before moving on to Necromancer, make sure there aren't many enemies around, but a good amount of squares. So, we found a good spot, let's do this. You collect your bullets by running into them. After you get a few squares on your side, you can use them to further increase the size of your army. The changelog for today said there were a few changes made to the Necromancer, so I'm not sure if it's always been like this, but it is now anyway. There's a limit to the amount of squares you can control at one time. After you've reached the cap, they will simply destroy the squares instead of recruiting them. The main drawback to Necromancer is that you are left very open to death when your squares are gone. Even with max movement speed, it's still pretty slow, and since it's also pretty big, avoiding bullets in a hectic area will be hard, especially if someone's going to be targeting you specifically. So anyway, let's talk about the stat build. This build actually isn't perfect with the knowledge I have now. If I were to go Necromancer again, I would give 2 more points to health instead of health regen. I chose to upgrade them equally since I was under the assumption your tank would always need to ram into the squares to get them, but that's not the case. I read an article saying this, but I guess Diepio could have changed that about Necromancer today. Body damage is interesting, and it's the one thing I'm not sure of. I know you should have at least 1 point there to insta-kill the squares, but looking at how much damage the squares were doing versus how much damage the Overseer's triangles were doing, it makes me wonder if body damage plays a role in how much damage the squares will cause. If someone has some insight into that, it would be great. You will need a lot of bullet speed to get player kills. It might be best to max it, but at what cost? Maybe 1 less movement speed? That's probably what I would do. Bullet penetration with all other bullets makes them have more HP in a sense. I'm pretty sure it's the same in the Necromancer's case, since maxed players can't get through as many of my squares as they could with normal squares. I only have bullet damage at 4, since with the sheer amount of squares you can have, the damage will really add up, as long as you have enough bullet speed to reach them, and enough bullet penetration so they won't die too fast. Reload, being useless, is at 0. And while I'm not a huge fan of movement speed, it's probably one of the most important stats for Necromancer. It really depends on your playstyle though. If you can manage to get a nice big army of squares quickly while moving slow, you can give all those points to max out all the other important stats. It's definitely worth a shot, cause even at max movement speed I wasn't all that impressed with its speed, so I might give that a try. But yeah, that's the Necromancer for you, the most unique tank for now, and probably the hardest to master, but one of the funnest as well. But I'm going to wrap this video up now. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, make sure to leave them in the comments below, and if you did enjoy, don't forget to drop a like. Thanks a lot for watching, and until next time.